few weeks ago, my family and I went on a 5-day trip to Barcelona. My main focus was spending quality time with them, not shooting a video. But I still captured a few moments along the way, just with the iPhone 17 Pro. No planning, no ND filters, no extra gear, and no third-party app. Okay, here are my settings for shooting cinematic videos on the iPhone. First, open settings, scroll all the way down to camera and tap on formats. Make sure that at the top, most compatible is selected. High efficiency looks good straight out of the camera on iPhone screens. But most compatible creates files that are much easier to edit and work with in most editing programs. So, if you're planning to color grade or do heavier editing, most compatible is your best choice. And now for the most important setting, scroll down a bit and make sure Apple ProRes is turned on. With the encoding set to log, shooting in log gives you more information for color grading later. Everything you saw at the beginning and even this right now is recorded in Apple ProRes and log, because this is also shot on iPhone. But I just record in ProRes when I know I will color grade it later or need more quality. I never use ProRes for everyday moments because the files are huge, harder to share and don't look good straight out of the camera because of the flat profile. Sometimes I even record ProRes to an external SSD because of the file size. One step back, I always make sure that record video is set to 4K and 30 frames per second. Let's quickly hop into the camera app. Tap on the top left menu and you can choose the ProRes setting, solution and frame rate. And back in settings, if you scroll all the way down, I recommend turning on lock white balance. Otherwise the white balance will shift while recording. And that really doesn't look good and makes color grading a real pain. The next important setting is when we take one step back and look at preserved settings. Tap on it and make sure exposure adjustment is turned on. Quick explanation. iPhones tend to overexpose. That's because they try to balance the exposure across the entire scene, focusing mainly on the shadows, which can cause the highlights to blow out, usually the sky. And once those highlights are gone, you can't bring them back in post. So, when you open the camera app, we can actually adjust the exposure from the top left corner. Setting it to -0.7 is perfect for daylight. That now uses this setting as the new reference for exposure. Once you set it, it stays the way until you change it again. Side note, I still tap and hold the brightest part of the frame to lock exposure. Okay, let's go back to the camera settings, scroll down a bit and look at the composition section. I like to have both grid and level turned on. The grid helps me frame my subject properly and the level helps me keeping my shots straight. And now a really important one. I'd say at least 90% of iPhone users film with a dirty lens, which means lower quality footage. I underestimated that myself too. So always make sure the lenses are clean. Okay, which lens should you use when? It depends on what you're filming. I usually shoot with the 1x lens. It's my favorite one. Then comes the 0.5x, the 2x, the 4x, and finally the 8x. These days I think it's much more important how you frame rather than what resolution you're shooting in. Your job is to make the subject look interesting in the frame, not just point the iPhone at it. And one of the biggest factors for image quality is lighting. Whenever possible, shoot in natural light, ideally in the morning or afternoon. Perfect lighting is not always possible. I noticed that myself while filming in Barcelona, but just make the best out of it. See you next time. Bye bye. These videos are probably also interesting.